Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Paul Young on the Fairgrounds, Coliseum, and efforts at neighborhood revitalization. Tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Paul Young, Memphis Housing and Community Development Director. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Along with Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. So we've got you on the Fairgrounds proposal. Much discussed, has been rolled out this past week. Right. We'll talk about Fairgrounds, we'll talk about the Coliseum, we'll talk about some of the other big projects. We're also going to spend a bunch of time talking about some of the real neighborhood level and really even house level efforts that Housing Community Development is working on right now. But certainly the headline is the Fairgrounds, $160 million proposal. It's a TDZ, a tourism development zone funded off tax dollars and tourist dollars. Right. is the idea. Why this plan? This plan, there's so many parts to it, it's hard to say the plan.
Right.
But the centerpiece certainly is the youth sports complex. Let's start there. Why youth sports? So
youth sports is a couple of reasons. One, we feel like it's a great thing for this community. It's something that can generate a lot of economic activity. It also provides an opportunity for our local youth to have a facility where you can do various things. As a part of the youth sports facility, we also programmed an indoor track. We have 4 universities, Lemoyne-Owen, Rhodes, CBU, and University of Memphis, that all have indoor track teams, yet they don't have an indoor track in the city of Memphis. So they practice outside and they compete in other locations where they do have indoor track facilities. So things like that, providing a new asset for our community to be able to utilize.
And a lot of this as a tourism effort is youth sports where people play, competitive sports, sometimes very expensive. We talked about it last week on the show. We've talked about it a number of times. So it might be competitive volleyball, competitive basketball, and their travel, what parents maybe know as travel basketball or travel volleyball. Right. That stuff's real expensive, right? I mean, and so there are fees associated with the teams using the facilities. And there's also, the travel expenses, so you get into the potential of a hotel and some retail on the site as well.
Yeah, so there, as I mentioned, there's a lot of economic activity that's tied to youth sports. And so you do have some expensive pay-to-play type leagues. Our goal is to be able to recruit those that are traveling across the country to Memphis. We are a strong tourism destination anyway. We feel like having this amenity could help us, but we also want to build an asset that we can use for our local community. So we want to program some things in the facility that's intentional about how we are able to let our local youth be able to engage.
Yeah, and we'll bring up some maps and renderings as we talk about this. And the maps, kind of outline the area. The former Liberty Land site, I think, is one of the big new areas of development. We can see here from the left to the right, there's Toby Park up in the left, which we'll talk about in a bit, and the bright green area is right on Central, right near the Children's Museum, where some retail might go, hotels, and then in the bottom right there you see the Coliseum, and then the proposal for a whole. That's really the heart of the new construction. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. One of the development strategies that when we looked at this site was to try to concentrate as much of the development as possible in that southwestern quadrant of the site, because that is where Liberty Land used to be. We know that parking is a significant concern on the site, so we tried to concentrate new development in that space where there wasn't an opportunity to park previously before Liberty Land was torn down.
Okay, Bill, Dries.
Paul, before this administration began looking at this again in July, there was a really hard sell on the sports complex as a tournament site that you're going to have a lot of families coming here to see. And it was such a hard sell that I think it created some pushback with people saying, wait a minute, this should be a site for Memphians as well. Part of your presentation this past week involved countering that to say, this will also be a facility for Memphians as well.
Right. So yes, we heard that loud and clear, that the community wants to make sure that this is something that is built not only for tourism, generating that economic activity, but something that Memphians can benefit from. So we tried to do some intentional things on the site. You'll notice that we plugged in space for basketball courts. These are covered pavilions. So while they serve as basketball courts, they can also serve as spaces for family picnics. You can do temporary activations similar to things you've seen on Riverside where they did an ice skating rink. You can do cool things in that space that allow for community activity. We also programmed funding as part of our wish list to make improvements to the Pipkin building, which could serve as a community gathering space. We are looking to do our first community benefits agreement. So this is a legal document that would legally obligate the city on each of these developments for specific amenities that will be tied to the community. So things like local hiring, things like offering free or reduced price usage for the community at certain times, because this facility is going to be hopping on the weekends, but during the week there are opportunities to program things for the local community where you can see direct benefits. And then some of the other things you might have heard in our proposal was to improve connections to the site, connect to the Green Line, to make improvements to the old Melrose High School. And some people I've seen say, why would you do that? Because as we invest in something this big in our community, we're trying to think about how can we have a bigger impact at the neighborhood scale. And there's nothing more impactful than taking away a blighted structure that means a lot to the community, but it's sat vacant for 30 years. And if this TDZ can help impact that, we feel like it's the right thing to do to try to tie it in some way.
On the space where this complex would go, that is the old Liberty Land site. It's also the space where you had about 2,200 parking spaces that are used during the football games. So how do you deal with that? Because you've got a 500 space parking garage, but that's for really the buildings that you're going to build on the Central Avenue frontage.
Yeah. So parking is a significant challenge, and we know that. We are having conversations with the stakeholders that use the space, Fred Jones and his team, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl group, as well as the University of Memphis, and they're all concerned, and we understand those concerns. We're trying to figure out, are there ways we can look at traffic management, because parking is one concern, but the other concern is how do you manage the traffic and the flow of traffic during game days? Are there ways for us to restripe the existing parking spaces where you can maximize those spaces, given that they aren't used all the time? You can actually reduce the size so that you can get more spaces on the lot. And then are there opportunities for us to do shuttles and things of that nature? I've heard some of the concerns. People in Memphis don't use shuttles, but we have to start thinking like a major city and thinking about new and innovative ways to address challenges. We're not the only community that has a stadium that doesn't have a lot of parking around it, but we can come and address this challenge head on.
And how many there are? I mean, I've heard people say, you know, the events that happen in Liberty Bowl are great. You know, that you listed them. Tigers football is now a ranked team and generating a whole lot more traffic, and everyone loves that. But there are only 10 football games, give or take, a year at that site. So that's part of that balancing act, I assume, of you have to have space and a plan for those big events, but then you've got another 340-something days a year that the space can be kind of completely not used.
Yeah, that's absolutely our perspective is, and I don't want to minimize the importance of those events. I mean, when you get 50 to 60,000 people in one space, that's an important thing for our community, and we want that to be able to continue to happen. But we have to figure out ways to maximize this opportunity. It's right here in the middle of our city, and how can we make it bigger and better?
And let's go. And sometimes we probably should have opened with this, but there's so many parts of the plan. Let's back up a little bit and talk about what a TDZ is and how this will be funded. So if it's $160 million overall through a tourism development zone proposal, that's a proposal, and you're going to correct me where I get this wrong. It goes to the state for approval and basically says the sales tax dollars in a given area that normally would go to the state and stay at the state come back to the local community. And they've been used all over the state. And I was really struck in the presentation. I didn't realize not just the big ticket items like Bass Pro or the Nashville Convention Center, but convention centers of really large convention centers in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, Chattanooga, and other places. These have been used for hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in other areas of the state. That's the idea here, not property tax revenue, not the city's just going to float a bunch of bonds and hope to pay it back some way or another.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, this is a unique opportunity for us to take sales taxes that would have otherwise gone to the state of Tennessee and use it for something that's going to make a difference right here in our community. And the way it works is you take the sales taxes that are over and beyond a baseline year, and that growth in sales taxes is used to pay for the bonds that you issue for the project. And so we are excited about having this opportunity. This is actually the last TDZ that can be approved by the state of Tennessee because they actually did away with the program. We submitted our letter of interest before 2007, which was their cutoff date. And so it makes sense for us to figure out how to use this tool. And that actually goes back to my earlier point around youth sports. Why youth sports? We also have to make sure that what we invest in is a tourism amenity. We can't take the funds and build something that the state would deem to be a local government responsibility. So if we just want to build a park, we wouldn't be able to use the TDZ to build a park.
Two things, and I'll go back to Bill, but just again so people get grounded in this. The overall area of the TDZ is kind of a sprawling area. It reaches all the way up to Crosstown, reaches then down into Orange Mound and other neighborhoods. Why that shape? And it's 2.97 square miles, which is important also. So why does it reach those areas it reaches, and why 2.97 miles?
So the state law says that it must be, the maximum amount is 3 miles. So we did as big as we could possibly get. And the reason that it has this amoeba-like shape is because we wanted to try to carve in as many sales tax generating areas as possible, because the idea with the TDZ is that you will build something that's going to draw a large number of people. Those people will spend money in various locations, and our goal is to try to figure out where will they spend the bulk of their money. And so that's why you see areas like Overton Square and Cooper Young carved in, but we also wanted to carve in the Lamar and Airways Shopping Center, because our hope is that we will also see investment and dollars being spent there as well.
And this is different in my mind than other proposals I've seen in the past. $40 million is outside the fairgrounds, right? It's in neighborhoods, it's about access, it's about others. And then we'll talk in a minute about Toby Field, which is sort of, it's next to, but outside. So the scope of it seemed different than some of the other proposals that were very, very and exclusively focused, it seemed to me, on the fairgrounds. But back to Bill.
In the money for the Liberty Bowl improvements, Councilmember Frank Colvett has talked in particular about maybe improving the load-in access to the Liberty Bowl. Is any of that included in those improvements?
No, so the improvements that we outlined right now, they're still pretty broad. We're looking at press boxes and media boxes and things of that nature. And I think it's important that, some people scoffed at investment at the Liberty Bowl, but that's also a tourism amenity. Back when I think it was Arkansas and Texas A&M may have played, I can't remember exactly which teams played, but a couple of years ago when they had the Liberty Bowl, that was one of the highest grossing Liberty Bowl games we've ever had in this city, and the economic impact rippled all across the town. We want to make sure that we invest in a stadium where we can still continue to bring that type of economic activity to this community.
For the Coliseum decision, let's get into that. Right. The Coliseum Coalition had a plan saying make this part of the sports tournament complex. That didn't pencil out.
Right. I mean, we certainly looked at it. I mean, that was initially the way that I thought it could work. I thought that it could work if we planned it as a part of that facility. But when you start looking at the actual costs and what it took to renovate the building, and whether it's $25 million or $40 million, the youth sports does not bring enough events to that structure to operate it in a manner where it would not have a deficit on an annual basis. Just for comparison's sake, the Lander Center operates at about a $3.5 million deficit annually. And they feel that with taxes that they assess in their community.
Property taxes?
It's a sales tax.
Sales tax, okay.
But we don't have that luxury. We don't have a luxury of having that tax that can manage the operating side. TDZ funds can't be used for operational expenses. And so when people hear these dollar amounts, they have this image that we are looking to pull the wool over their eyes, but we are exploring every way possible. I think that for the Coliseum, we need to explore, are there options for other adaptive reuses other than an arena?
Yeah, and to clarify, you all are putting a couple things, just to clarify, you all are putting $500,000, give or take, into
Right.
mothball it, make sure it's not leaking, so that you can continue a conversation down the road. We have some renderings, and we have to, renderings are just ideas, but of what the youth sports complex could look like. And one of the things that the point you've made, Kevin Kane has made this point when he's been on the show, the head of the CVB, that in the Coliseum for youth sports you could fit, 3 or 4 basketball courts, something like that. These facilities have sometimes 15, 20 basketball courts.
8 to 12 basketball courts, double the size in volleyball courts.
That's what I mean,
and there are countless other ways to use the space. There's 150,000 square feet of column-free space. So it's much more flexible. And as much as I care about the Coliseum, I graduated from the building as well. I have
your high school graduation?
Yeah, my high school graduation. I have memories of Memphis Wrestling, Coco Beware, all these other figures that were great and fantastic and really a part of my youth. We want to figure out a way to make it work, but right now it doesn't pencil out. And so what the city is saying is not tear it down. We're saying let's invest some money to make sure that it's sustained. We have a cadre of other items that we think we can invest in that will have an immediate impact on the community. And we can continue to work on what happens on the Coliseum.
Is it possible that once other parts of a redeveloped fairgrounds are up and running, that you get some proposals at that point that aren't on the table, probably aren't even in the picture at this point for the Coliseum?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that helps the Coliseum the most is having assets around it that generate activity, because you're bringing more eyes to this asset. I think that you will have many more outside private interests that are willing to invest funds if they see something that's working in very close proximity, like the youth sports facility. So I think that we just need to be patient as a community and try to work to come to a solution on it.
Let's go to 2 other main parts of the plan, because there is so much more going on in your office that we're going to try to get to here. But just sticking with the plan for 2 more parts. And people can go to, what's the website?
MemphisFairgrounds.com.
And they can make comments, is that correct?
They can make comments, they can see all of the information, everything that we discover. We're trying to put it out online. We're trying to make this process as transparent as possible.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the retail. I mean, back in the day, people may remember your predecessor, Robert Lipscomb, back in the Wharton administration, maybe even before that, plans for huge retail space. Right. This is a slimmed down idea along Central in the green area that people can see. That's right next to the Children's Museum. What's the concept there?
So the concept is retail that complements sports, youth sports. We don't know what the retail will look like because we do not have a developer in the fold yet. We are looking at issuing an RFQ, a request for qualifications, just to see what type of interest we might have in developers that would like to be there in the next couple of weeks. But until we get that developer on the hook, we don't know actually what goes. We know we'd like to have a hotel. We know that we would like to have some type of use that provides, mouthpieces and shin guards and things like that. And
then also restaurants for people traveling, whether they're coming to the Liberty Bowl or they're coming to the
Right, but we also want to be careful that it's not competing, direct competition with Overton Square and Cooper Young and these other areas that already have very well-established restaurants and things of that nature.
And also in that area, there's a proposal for a new, well, so many points to make, but a new gym for Maxine Smith STEAM Academy. Is that correct? And potentially a little more classroom space.
Right. So the idea was to relocate the gym and try to utilize some of that that frontage along Central for commercial use. One of the things that when we met with some of the school administrations, representatives, one of the things that they talked about was the fact that you have a 600-person waiting list at Maxine Smith, and there's actually 2 schools that are located in that building, Maxine Smith, which is a junior high school, and Middle College, which is a high school. And so being able to expand capacity was something that they wanted to be able to do, and so we felt like if we build a commercial structure, there may be opportunities to do something on the upper floors that complements the schools. And
then the last, not really last, but the last piece we'll focus on today is Toby Field, which is just across the way. Talk about what is proposed there.
So the proposal there is to improve the existing fields, to relocate the dog park and make way for a BMX bike facility that would be at a competition grade. I know that we have one at Shelby Farms that's being utilized more for recreational use. I think they do have some small competitions there. Part of the thinking there was, is there a way to add another amenity that wouldn't be too expensive, but could also draw tourism? And so as we met with some of our consultants on that issue, those that come for BMX skating, biking competitions tend to have longer stays.
Last couple of points on this. For all these, you mentioned private developers on the retail side, but with the youth sports complex, I assume with BMX, this is not, Paul Young and Mayor Strickland running these facilities. There are contract entities that are in charge. That's the idea, and that's what it's done in other cities.
Absolutely. We would definitely have outside support. We're working closely with our parks division. They're probably going to have a much stronger say because these are park lands, although housing and community development has kind of been coordinating the development side. I think we'll lend to their expertise on how we move forward with management agreements and things of that nature.
And the last thing on that is, and people maybe couldn't see it on the map, but the Green Line would be extended, the idea, so that the Green Line would reach all the way into the fairgrounds.
Right, so it'll be extended down Flicker Street, and so we want to pull that into the fairgrounds.
We'll shift gears from the biggest of projects, and we'll skip over some of the things that you're also involved in, like the Pinch in South City and the Convention Center, because I think we'll just get you back another time to talk about those things.
Glad to.
But after you were on the show last time, you mentioned to me some of these real neighborhood level and almost house by house level programs that HCD is also involved in.
Right.
That it's not just doing these big mega projects, it's actually neighborhood by neighborhood, house by house. Where do you want to start with some of the things that you all are working on in that level?
Well, I think it's just important that we make sure that the community knows that while we are involved and we're excited about some of these major projects that are, bigger scales, bigger dollar figures, we still do work at the neighborhood level, and I would like for that to really be our sweet spot as a division. We have a number of programs. We recently announced our weatherization program, where individuals are able to have their home weatherized, which essentially means making it more energy efficient. So we have a lot of need in this community in terms of the quality of housing. I often say we don't have an affordable housing problem. We have a quality affordable housing problem. We have a number of units that are available, but there's so many that are in disrepair. We also have a lead program where we're able to go into homes and remediate lead. It's part of a broader focus for us where we want to focus on health and housing. And
we have some photos of where you all have improved some houses just before and after some of the work that you're describing.
Before and after pictures. And part of what we want to do is mitigate those impacts. We want to see kids healthier. We have a collaborative partnership with the health department, with Le Bonheur, with University of Memphis. There's a number of different stakeholders that are all putting our minds around how can we have a bigger impact, not just on that one unit, but at a systems level. How can we improve asthma rates? How can we improve lead poisoning? All of these things matter, and it's because of our places and where people live, and how can we touch those units? And so we're trying to think holistically about how we do that.
One of the efforts in this vein, Paul, is Mason Village, which is under construction as we speak. It's a project with the Church of God in Christ with Mason Temple just down the block from where these homes are being built. Talk about that a little bit, because it's built on where Crump Fowler Homes was, the public housing development was at one time, but it's a really different approach than just build as many units as you can and cram people in there.
Yeah, so it's a 77-unit development. We're really excited about the partnership with Church of God in Christ and John Stanley, who's serving as the developer, that John Stanley company. We want to think about how can we bring quality, affordable housing to our community. You know that this is in very close proximity to South City, so we hope that as we replace units at Foot Homes, that we'll also have new units coming online over there as well. And so we want to see that type of new development ripple into the side south of Lamar, which is where this is, and deeper into South Memphis.
And this is rental property that is scaled for families.
Exactly.
These are not small units, cram everything that you can
Right.
into it, and that's what you've got.
Right. I think the bulk of them are actually 3-bedroom units. I don't have the unit mix in front of me, but it's intended for large families. We want people to occupy our core. That's part of the mayor's strategy, is to revitalize the core, find ways to grow our population inside the city of Memphis core, and then we feel like that will ripple out into the other areas across the community.
South City is the big redevelopment of the housing project, to the south of FedEx Forum that we've talked about with you on the show, and has been the last of the big ones. But the rendering we had up there, and I should point out that that was a rendering. Also, Calvary Creek, is that a similar sort of thing?
Calvary Creek is different. It's 61 units, single-family units that's being developed in the Raleigh area. By the time this airs, we will have had a ribbon cutting, and we're really excited about bringing some quality, affordable housing in partnership with NHL.
And how much of this is local money versus federal money, with not enough time to answer that question?
The bulk of it is federal money, federal funds that come through our division to support these types of projects, but some of it is local. We use CIP funds for Mason Village.
I think that is all the time we have. You have a lot going on. Obviously, there were some other things like South City and the pinch and so on that we're going to get to.
We got a lot going.
But we'll get you back. I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Bill. And thank you all for joining us. Join us again next week.